Hello, good evening. We are at John 18. I apparently have never read John 18, at least not with a pen in hand, or pencil, or marker, or whatever. Let's go. Jesus arrested. See, now this is one of those days I need my readers, but I'll be fine. When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. On the other side, there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. Now Judas, who betrayed him, knew the place, because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. So now he's turning Jesus in. Super rude. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" Is this how it happens? Where's the part about Jesus being in the garden and the angel coming and him sweating like blood? Is that in a different section that's not in John? Or in a different part? We'll have to find out. It's super weird how the Bible is. Like, not every section of the gospel tells the story the same. Or I'm just confused at which part we're at here. So, this is what happens when it's your first time reading it. All right, where was I? Jesus went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" It's funny how he asks even though he knows. He has a little bit of attitude, that Jesus. "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said. And Judas, the traitor, was standing there with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again, he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of those you gave me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" So Jesus is like, look, I have to carry out God's will. You are getting in the way of me carrying out God's will. Don't cut the guy's ears off. You know, like I'm literally, I'm doing this. Then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. I cannot believe we're missing Jesus in the garden. I can't get over that. I can't even handle that. Like, can we just, let's read it in a different section. Because my brain can't even process this story with that part missing. All right, so we're going to Luke. Okay, let's back up. So this is in Luke. They have the Last Supper. Then Jesus prays on the Mount of Olives. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down, and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Because Jesus was stressed out about what was about to happen to him. And he's like literally asking God, God, take this away from me. And then at the same time, he's like, but I'll do your will. Like, it's hard. You don't always want to do what God wants you to do, even if you're Jesus. Like, it's so hard. He's like sweating blood practically. When he rose from prayer and went back to the disciples, he found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. Why are you sleeping? He asked them. Get up and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. Then Jesus is arrested. So now let's go back to John 18, Jesus arrested. So they just skipped that whole part in John. Super weird. Peter's first denial. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus because this disciple, Kitty, hey, go, sorry. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. You aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you? She asked Peter. He replied, I am not. He should have said, yes, I do follow Jesus. And instead he was like, no, I'm not a disciple. It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. The high priest questions Jesus. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. I have spoken openly to the world, Jesus replied. I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest? He demanded. If I said something wrong, Jesus replied, testify as to what was wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Isn't that true how people are? They like beat him because he doesn't give the answer they want, and yet in reality he's speaking the truth. It's horrible. People still are like that. Peter's second and third denials. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there, warming himself. So they asked him, you aren't one of his disciples too, are you? He denied it, saying, I am not. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him in the garden? Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment, a rooster began to crow. Okay, so at that part, they don't even explain it well in John. John's kind of missing some parts here. In some other part, probably Luke or Matthew, where they have a little more detail, they say, like, Jesus literally tells him, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. And then he does the 3rd time, and then the rooster crows. So it's just showing how Jesus can like tell the future like that. Hey, you, get down. Anyway. Okay, last part. Jesus before Pilate. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the place of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, what charges are you bringing against this man? If he were not a criminal, they replied, we would not have handed him over to you. Pilate said, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. But we have no right to execute anyone, they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Is that your own idea, Jesus asked, or did others talk to you about me? Am I a Jew? Pilate replied. Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done? Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place. You are a king then, said Pilate. Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. I like that part. What is truth? Retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews? They shouted back, no, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. So they can release Jesus because there's really no charge against him, and yet they don't. They release the guy who's a true criminal to let Jesus hang. It's super crazy. All right, we're at Jesus. I always do that. We're at John 19. Jesus sentenced to be crucified. That is going to have to wait for another day. That is it. We have a little bit of time, so let's do some devotionals quick. Look at those who are honest and good, for a wonderful future awaits those who love peace. Psalm 37. I don't even know what day today is. The 7th. All right. I am with you in all that you do, even in the most menial task. I am always aware of you, concerned with every detail of your life. Nothing escapes my notice, not even the number of hairs on your head. However, your awareness of my presence falters and flickers. As a result, your life experience feels fragmented. When your focus is broad enough to include me in your thoughts, you feel safe and complete. When your perception narrows so that problems or details fill your consciousness, you feel empty and incomplete. Learn to look steadily at me in all your moments and all your circumstances. Though the world is unstable and in flux, you can experience continuity through your uninterrupted awareness of my presence. Fix your gaze on what is unseen, even as the visible world parades before your eyes. And then she's pulling from Matthew 10:29, Hebrews 11:27, and 2 Corinthians 4:18. Last one. Children of the King. A miracle happened when the Spirit of God made us new. We were no longer sinners bound for hell, but part of God's family. We are on the way to our eternal home where we will share in His kingdom. What a privilege and a joy this is. Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known. But we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. 1 John 3:2. See how very much our Father loves us, for He calls us His children, and that is what we are. But the people who belong to this world don't recognize that we are God's children because they don't know Him. 1 John 3:1. Let's go back to 1 John 3:1 and 1 John 3:2 since we're reading John and the devotional is about John. Wait, no, that's a different, is that 1 John? Oh yeah, that's 1 John. We're reading regular plain old John. But back at the end, there's John 1, 2, and 3 back here. Let's skip ahead then. 1 John 3. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known. But we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. All who have this hope in Him purify themselves, just as He is pure. All right, that's it for today.